I know the lunch line's been a bit killer, so I appreciate any of you who did make it or those that still might struggle to find their way. Today, I don't know if you even caught the intentional reference of Justin Bieber's Intentions song, but we're going to be covering a ton about intent, most specifically buyer-level intent, the deltas between buyer-level intent, account-level intent, which account-level intent, quite honestly, is probably the predominant tone across all of the sessions, all of the vendors, and we're going to be breaking down the deltas there. Simultaneously, we'll also be taking kind of a trip into B2B content consumption, purchase propensity, and how that layers into buyer-level intent behaviors. So, I'm Dave Fortino. I'm Chief Strategy Officer over at NetLine. NetLine's part of Informa. For those of you who don't know, Informa is a billion-dollar company, publicly traded, based in London. I think the entity that you'd know the most would be Content Marketing World, Content Marketing Institute. We were acquired about a year and a half ago or so. And since that time, they've been giving us a ton of energy, excitement, and funding to drive growth. So first kind of a bonus here. Anybody raise their hand if they know what that question is from, what movie that's from? Oh, I have to pick one of you. I'll pick you for your first. Thank you. Classic movie, my personal favorite. I was afraid no one would know it. So, and Marissa didn't know it when we were building the deck. So cool, we'll hook up afterwards. So yeah, like I said, I'd like to kick things off by having a little bit of fun. And we'll play a game of Marco Polo. So we're going to be going back into our childhood. Why this makes sense right now, I don't think it'll make sense at all to you, but let's try to go for it. Anybody who wants to be Marco? All right, so you know the deal. Eyes closed. We promise not to do anything weird. And so let's try to find someone who I can simulate being Polo. Anybody over on this side of the room? Cool. All right, got two possibly. I'm going to go with the first one. And so let's just go through this exercise. We're going to say Marco. Can you say Marco?
Marco.
Okay.
Marco.
Thank you. All right, so Marco, open your eyes and see if you can figure out who Polo was in the room. Oh, Emma. Wow. Emma's from Informa, actually. So, familiar face. It wasn't her, though. So, what we just simulated is the delta between account-level intent and buyer-level intent. And what I mean by that is that that clump of people over there is theoretically the account. You were the salesperson. Marketing kicked over a signal to you saying, hey, somewhere over here, there's some people inside that account that are actively expressing intent. You're looking over there saying, who? At this point, most marketers and your revenue ops teams and sales colleagues are wandering around the world being like you, David, with their eyes closed and constantly trying to find the who. Yet most of the technologies that we rely upon are designed to never disclose the who. It's always designed to keep account-level insights bubbling to the surface. And ultimately, the who is still designed for like your sales reps to go figure out and hopefully find their way. So when we look at current day intent data, this really mirrors a lot about what I've just been speaking to, right? Which is that every vendor is looking at trying to curate data sets based upon account naming conventions, domains, cookie pools, and that's about it, right? It then dives in deeper into account behavior that's associated to still the account themselves and not an individual user. That then is broken down into building scores and scoring algorithms. These are all helpful, and it's better than knowing nothing, but it certainly doesn't help your sales team have a direct dialogue with a person, simply a logo. So yet again, your sales team looks at you like one of these two, and sometimes marketers do this as well, whereby you're receiving all of these rich signals, a ton of valuable data, yet still, when you look to act upon that data or action it, you're starting back to just simply saying, well, I'm going to spend more money now trying to target that account. So I'm going from account signals back to account executions, back to account data, back to account signals, back to account executions. Never once getting to the buyer, never once getting to the who. And it's really strange that a lot of the ABM, ABX motions that are discussed around the industry are always talking about buyer's journeys, buyer intent. Yet those software solutions are designed not to disclose the buyer, right, ever. It's always disclosed to design to actually bubble to the surface the key account. And so marketers need to know the who. They want to know the who, right? If you can deliver the who, you're effectively accelerating sales dialogue, direct relationships with your brand, direct relationships with your content, and so on. So I want to take a quick step back and kind of break down the difference between buyer-level first-party data and third-party data, and then also account data and buyer data. And so first-party, all about permission-based, users taking proactive actions with your brand, your content, and so on. This is really critical. I think it's been this way for years, whereby the accumulation of first-party data is critical in building out direct dialogue with your prospects. If you're a media company, that's even more critical. Depending upon whatever the hell Google decides to do over the coming years, first-party data will seemingly be important again, although that's been told to us many times over the past few years. Third-party signals, largely commoditized data sets available via every marketplace that you can think of, although high volume, high accuracy by domain behavior, low frequency, low validity when it comes to buyer behavior, and that just comes back to their business models, quite honestly. And it does come back to some of the privileges and or permissions that a lot of the web is moving away from, whereby marketers are explicitly trying to align with more consent-oriented behavior with their customers and prospects. Same would be true here on the company level and buyer level side. So we've talked about this a bit, but I did want to present kind of a delta table here so you can take a look at things. Again, the goal for all of us is to identify the who is actively in market, making purchase decisions and or evaluating to do so, and not being stuck at that company level view. And so, Encanto, I looked at this image and I was like, I think I saw that movie, I'm not sure. But the point here is that all of us from a B2B marketer perspective in today's market, more than ever, are under a tremendous amount of pressure to not only deliver results to our own KPIs, to deliver results to our sales colleagues, to ultimately accelerate dialogue with prospects so that sales can stay. And if you look around the floor, and this is sad, I would say half of the vendors here have done major rifts within their sales and marketing orgs. So when we're talking about buyer level intent data versus account data, the sooner all of us that can collectively understand the buyer, what they're doing, the data that they are delivering, and how we can action that data, the better off we collectively are as a revenue team. So this next segment here is really kind of digging into the raw data around some of the passion we have around buyer level intent. And so we sit on top of a platform that processes a little over 5 million gated asset registrations per year. That data is a curation of white paper, webinar, case study, analyst report, content consumption, podcasts, you name it. And so with that, there's generating hundreds of millions of exhaust signals all about identifying purchase propensity, purchase intent by account level, job type, job title, job function, content format, and so on. And the insights I'm sharing here today are a sneak peek into the 2023 content consumption and demand report. You're looking at a 2022 version up there. We do have a few copies if you want one afterwards for free. But everyone here afterwards will be getting a copy of the 23 version. So, content consumption trends. The challenge here as a B2B marketer really lies on the two fringe sides of this table or this slide. Content consumption continues to increase, right? So from B2B decision-making perspective, 18% increase in content consumption from 21 to 22. That's great. Your buyers are actively out there researching, they're evaluating content, engaging with brands, and so on. The downside to that is that increases clutter in the marketplace. It increases the challenges that you face as a marketer to constantly be leveling up, altering what you're doing. What you did yesterday that killed it from a KPI metric perspective won't kill it a week from now, or a month from now, or a year from now. So that commitment of constantly staying in front of your competitors is critical. I'm going to skip over the middle one. It's pretty standard. So the far right side is a metric called the content consumption gap. It's a metric that's unique to our platform. And what it does is it's designed to provide transparency into the time delta between when a user actually registers for content and the time they actually got around to reading it, to watching it, to listening or viewing it. And so at one point, that was getting close to 30 hours. And so when you think about that from a sales cycle perspective, and even nurture and SDRs, a lot of SDRs are trained to like hit the account within 3 minutes once that user registers for a white paper. On average, it's taking a little over 24 hours for the user to actually read said content or watch that video. The beauty here, though, is that it's accelerating back into a time whereby users are more aligned with consuming content quickly, which means they're taking their decisions more seriously as well. So what's it look like when we're talking about content consumption behavior and trying to distill that down into buyer propensity by timelines, right? It's great to know, yeah, users who do this are more inclined to make a purchase, but let's go deeper and try to isolate when those purchases will happen. And also, what's the relationship between the types and formats of content and how they align to buyer intent? And so what you're seeing here, left-hand side, it's all about the formats that are self-identified, and I'll get to this in a second, as being highly aligned to be making purchases within the next 6 months. How that's done is that we're intercepting users as they're registering for content. I want to make it extremely clear, we are not an analyst group. Maybe some of you are in the audience, but we are not building personas based upon where we think content sits in a buyer's journey, right? It's not about that at all. And that's been well covered, and everybody seemingly believes it, but there's no data to back it. And so we've intercepted 100,000 plus users as they're actively consuming content and asked them questions around their pain points, their challenges, and the timeline that they're actively going to be investing and make a decision. We then matrix that against their job title, their job level, industry, sub-industry, company size. This is just a short kind of and quick snapshot as to what that looks like. The software one specifically is software trials. Content formats less likely on the right-hand side. This is where it gets a bit juicy, right? So if we went from 6 months on the prior slide to be now making purchases within the next 3 months. Reports, 4.6% more likely to be making a decision within the next 3 months. And this seemingly is persistent throughout the year because we've done random sampling over a year to get to these stats. So this wasn't just a one-stop kind of snapshot period in time. Ebooks, 10.4% more likely. That one is quite bizarre, honestly, because I think most people in the industry would say an ebook is the most extreme top-of-funnel type of content. So a lot of people try to kind of go away from ebooks when they're saying, I'm trying to engage with the buyer. That said, ebooks are phenomenal, kind of distilling complex things and making it simple and making it bite-sized and very approachable. So why wouldn't a buyer who is taking something serious also enjoy that type of content? Live webinars, the highest, 25.4% more likely to be making a purchase in the next 3 months. I think everybody knew that. I don't think everybody knew the delta when you move to on-demand webinars. Dramatic decline. That doesn't mean that those pieces of content don't serve a purpose. They most certainly do. You should most certainly have a library of every webinar that you've ever recorded. But keep in mind, on-demand stuff has no urgency, right? Urgency for live is what the true value is. People are giving you an hour of their time. They're saying, I'm blocking my calendar, it's for you. So let's look at the relationship between job level and buyer intent. And so again, we try to take all of this data and matrix it a number of ways. The 23 report goes super deep into this. There's even going to be some companion kind of like pivot tables that you can play around with some of the raw data itself. And so last year, more strategic kind of senior level job levels were less likely to be making a purchase decision. I think that goes back to there being a point in early 2022 where there was a bit of optimism, where we were coming out of COVID. Everything was feeling like, okay, we're running stable businesses. We've figured this out. This year, it's been nothing but chaos, nothing but layoffs, cuts, wars, other pandemic issues constantly arising. And I think largely due to the layoffs, C-suite is getting heavily involved in making direct purchase decisions and consuming the content to drive those decisions. So when you look at that, quick reference here, I'm not going to read off on the table, but what we're looking at on the left-hand side are those titles that have consumed content, gravitating to purchase-related decision-making, and have self-identified and saying that they will be making an investment within the next 6 months. So again, this is all first-party sourced, actual people, actual buyers, providing their direct inclination into intent, not someone's fancy, statistically modeled propensity model to say that we think this account is expressing intent. It's an actual user. So again, we went further. We took a customer of ours and dove deeply into ERP software evaluation. This is by far the sexiest section of this deck. So bear with me. There were 11,000 senior level IT decision makers that were intercepted. Again, we try to focus on more or less extracting their pain points, their challenges, and the timeline to invest. And so what you're seeing here are some things that may not be appropriate for you to care about, but it shows you the power of asking those questions as you're really engaging with your own buyers through any content consumption that perhaps is even being delivered on site. And so if you don't ask questions and you're only relying upon an account-based model, you'll never gain this level of insight unless you're either devising some next-gen product that probably won't have scale because it's only on your site, which I'll get to in a minute. But these types of things, people will answer. They will be honest. You just have to ask instead of always relying upon a little flame next to an account logo saying it's surging. So diving into the data, again, 30% of the respondents actually said they're going to be making a purchase within the next 12 months. That was mind-boggling to me. Typically, any of these survey panels that we're running tends to be quite a bit lower. And then they cited their pain point, which none of us in this audience really care about, but it's interesting in the level of depth that these people will go through to tell an account, yeah, this is where I'm at. I'm ready to make a decision. Here's my pain point and the urgency to address that. And if you're a vendor, ideally, you better be able to contextualize your outreach using all of those things to personalize outreach, to contextualize the approach. But most importantly, do not have a discovery call with that account by asking those types of questions when they've already told you the answers. So again, this type of data, it's all about the who. It's all about the multiplier that it provides to marketers, sales teams, revenue teams, as to how you actually use buyer level intent. And here's a couple examples. These are all well covered from the account side of things. But the account side of things, it stops there, right? You're still sending 12 emails to 12 random people inside the account because you hope one of them is the person that said organization was tracking. You simply don't know. And so once you do know, then you can layer all of these logical things into place whereby you're personalizing, you're contextualizing, perhaps even optimizing personalized delivery experiences and so on. And so when you think about this from your own website, like I said, there's this challenge of scale, asking questions of your own buyers and your own touch points. You can do these things, right? You can launch modals, you can progressive profile your audiences. It's not terribly complicated, requires a little bit of effort and probably some third-party plugins into your CMS. The challenge there is that that's not scalable. So I don't know, how many of you in the crowd are generating like 1,000+ registrations for content on your own corporate website a month? Yeah, so scale clearly an issue. So the idea here is that I'm inviting you to something fun and new. And so I need show of hands for selecting a door. I don't know if any of you remember this old game on TV, but we're gonna select a magical door and we'll see what's behind it. Show of hands for door number 1. Nobody likes 1? All right, door number 2? All right, door number 3? Oh, I think 3 won. All right, 3. So, congratulations. We effectively are inviting all of you to premier exclusive access to what will be the first buyer level intent data platform on the marketplace. You'll be receiving a 1-month early access point free of charge into the service. It allows you to slice and dice based upon your ICP, topics that those users are engaging with, and we'll bundle in a ton of really rich intent data that otherwise hasn't even been thought of, and I can't share enough about this today, so it sounds BS, but believe me. The idea here is to arm marketers with the who, arm salespeople with the who, right? Without that, you're still stuck in every other intent platform, getting signals, trying to find that buyer group, trying to send your dozen emails and LinkedIn messages, and not really having a clue who to reach. And it's just quite honestly a bit of educated luck. And so we're looking to change that. You're also, like I said, getting access to the 23 report, which I think, although that's sexy, it's not as cool as snazzy software that helps you generate revenue. I was going to give you a live demo here, but being that I don't have a computer up here to do this, I'd encourage you to swing by our booth for this, and that's not a trick to get you over there. There's a free tool called Audience Explorer. Audience Explorer is kind of like a middle ground between the software that you're going to be invited to use and static data that's covered in the report. What's cool about it, it's completely ungated. We don't know if you're using it or not, but you can go in there, you can designate who your ICP is by job function, job level, industry, company size, geo, and so on. It'll spit out a live report analyzing 180 days worth of data. It then visualizes that based upon the types of content that those people are consuming, the formats of content, the topics that are resonating with that specific persona, the top accounts that are engaging based upon what you've queried. I think the coolest part is that it obfuscates data and shows you that a manager of a specific functional area registered for a white paper that covered this specific topic at this specific company. That level of granularity into the who, into what those accounts are doing. You can use this at any time. We highly encourage marketers to use it as a way to just inform their own content marketing strategy, level set what their ICPs are doing versus what they think they're doing, and build from there. But it's a great tool, and like I said, it's completely free. It will forever always be free. And so, in closing statements for closing business. And so, always be cobbling, right? Is anybody familiar with this? Always, come with me. So we touched on this journey of buyer level intent versus account level intent. I think I beat you over the head with that. All intent is not created equal, right? And I kind of cringe sometimes. I've been at this event for 5 years, I'd say. And most of the time, I feel like 99% of the companies here are saying the same exact thing. And it makes it difficult to feel good for all of you as the attendees, to leave feeling like you've been educated and have been offered clarity and have been informed enough to make a cognizant decision between 10 companies who've all said that their special sauce is better than the next. So keep that in mind. And ultimately, you deserve better. Your sales colleagues deserve better. Your budgets deserve better. And quite honestly, in this market, your career does as well. So that's it. I'll open it up for questions. We have about 5 minutes or so, and we'll go from there. All right. Easy crowd. All right, well, if anybody has any additional questions afterwards, wants to chat on the side or as you're leaving, want to swing by the booth, feel free. And thank you for your time. And I appreciate that you got here, even though the lunch lines were crazy hellish. Take care. Thank you.